Should I retire? I do my live streams like this every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, and I do these long enough to answer every question that comes in. At least I try to. I know there's a lot of people who won't click on my long videos because that's not what YouTube is for that person. They don't like to watch something that's an hour and a half or 2 hours long. So I'm trying to cover those topics in shorter videos. And in these longer ones, I actually want to dive in deep to your questions. The intro, the first goal of 10 minutes, is to cover a topic, giving you a chance to get those questions on financial freedom, making work optional, different paths to financial freedom. Is it even possible? How would it work for you? What were some of the challenges I faced? So that you might miss some of the mistakes that I made, or you might have a faster timeline at doing it than I did. When we talk about what age should I retire, you can go online and Google, what age should I retire? Almost everything that shows up is the normal retirement age is. I don't know that we want to be normal. That's why we're on YouTube watching a channel that's dedicated to making work optional. That's not normal. Retiring early, that's not normal. Jaspreet Singh from Minority Mindset has stated several times that about 0.08% of people reach financial independence, let alone retire early. There's a lot of people who reach financial freedom and then don't retire early. I worked for 4 more years after reaching financial freedom than I had to, just because I liked my job. So, at what age should you retire early? The answer is you should retire at the age when you satisfy two issues. The first issue, and then I don't think this is the one everybody thinks about, because almost everybody, when they talk about when can I retire, it's how much do you need? Right. And that new person that's never even thought of what would it be like to retire early says a number, 1 million, 10 million, 5 million, 250,000, whatever the number is in their head, means they haven't really researched how retirement works. If you have a number, you're basically hoping you run out of life before you run out of money. That's not a situation I want to be in. So I'm not going to start with finances. The first thing that you need to satisfy of these two things I want you to satisfy to know which age you should retire is, do you want to? Right? At what age would you want to retire? I have started to realize in the last few months that if I had retired in my 20s or 30s, I don't know that I would have developed the to my core hatred of having a job and a boss and customers and clients and regulations and a paycheck and all of those things that came with having a W-2 job, to where retiring at 52 after 12 years of investing, I know that there is no level of boredness or anything that can go wrong in my life that would make me go back to work a W-2. In my 20s and 30s, I don't know that I would have done that. So there are some people like me who maybe wouldn't have been able to retire in their 20s or 30s and then stay at it because it hadn't developed the disdain for employment. I am now unemployable. So the age for me would have been a little bit longer in life. Now, other people, you might have that desire right at the age of 15. You might be the next Cody Davis of the world, who I think had a job for a day or something and decided he didn't like it. Or Graham Stephan, who worked one job for a few weeks. And then you go the entrepreneurial route. But do you want to? Do you want to give up your identity? What identity do you want to achieve before you retire? Right? I've been in the Marine Corps, I've worked in law enforcement, I've been a truck driver, a CDL instructor, I've worked in management. When somebody asks me, who are you? I was never, I don't think it'll ever be a Marine, a cop, a truck driver. Actually, one of the things I spent the most of my time at the CDL school when I was teaching people is that I have never called myself a truck driver. Not as an answer to a question. I wasn't a truck driver. Truck drivers are 350 pounds, drive for Swift or Sierra England, and are gone for 3 or 4 months at a time. And until, I don't know, 17 years of driving, had never spent the night away from home due to work as a truck driver, because I wasn't a truck driver. I was a local delivery for a company that had trucks. I never really called myself a cop because there was already enough hatred in the world. There's no reason to direct more of it at me. So then I took landlord because I'm trying to hit all those things that people hate, apparently. So I didn't want to stay working because it was my identity, right? The last decade, I had been demoted all the way down to the president of the company where I was working at. When you could say I'm the president of the company, people think, well, that's a title, something you've earned. No, that was a position I was basically bribed into staying at the company with, right? They give you promotions and titles so that you feel important, so that you stay, so that they can make more money off of you, which is the purpose of the company. And I don't have a problem with it. I really have a good relationship with the owners of that company. But that's the nature of W-2 work. Do you want to retire? Because just because we can doesn't mean we should. There are people who don't know what they would do with their time. There are people who believe the myth of everybody dies 2 years after they retire. Well, yeah, because what did I talk about at the very beginning of this video? If you look up at what age should I retire, you see the normal retirement age is, and it usually talks about 65 or 67 or something like that. And there are riots in France when they talk about moving that up. But of course, you're only going to live a couple of years after retirement if that's what you're looking at. Right? 12% of the population never even makes it to 65, let alone a couple of years past that. When we talk about the average age being 76, yeah, it used to be 78, but now it's reduced to 76 because of 2020. That's the average in a bell curve. Quite a few people are deleted before that. So that's the first thing I want you to figure out on retiring early is, do you even want to? Is it something you would want to do? No, is it, I hate my job, I can't stand this? Well, then change jobs, careers, companies, industries, right? I went from truck driving to law enforcement to CDL training. Those are very different industries. One is labor, right? You're driving the truck, you're delivering the product. One is law enforcement, civil service, and then one is education. Those are like three completely different industries that you can change. Instead of retiring, you can change what you're doing. Maybe retirement isn't the solution for you. If you're super lazy like me, it probably is. Or if you have, I want to use the right word without sounding super douchey, passion for certain things. I have a friend, Steve, music teacher. Music teachers don't make a lot. So he's house hacking. He did some couch flipping, and he's looking at entrepreneurial ways to replace his income so that he could probably teach music and not worry about the income. Our friend Curtis. Curtis is on his second house hack. He's now in a triplex, and he's a PE teacher. He loves teaching, but while teaching pays okay where he's at, he doesn't have to worry about the money if he makes work optional. And then he can do coaching, which is, from my conversations with him, what I think he prefers. Do you have something you want to do that is more important to you than your job? That's the do you want to. The second thing we need to solve is the can you, right? Now, the can you is usually associated with money. And this is a couple of step process. First, we need to figure out what our freedom number is. This is an amount of money that comes in every month that we don't have to sell our lives for 1 hour at a time, that is more than it costs us to live the life we want to. Right? That's passive income. Defined by the IRS, different than most people in YouTube land. For some reason, I will not call real estate investing passive. Real estate investing is not passive. It's all consuming. It takes up all your time when you're not at work. It takes up all your thoughts when you're not thinking about something specific. Real estate ownership is very close to passive, right? So real estate investing was hours every week, 30 minutes every day, and then hours every week. Owning real estate, I have 18 rental units, takes me less than 2 hours a month to self-manage. So a couple $100,000 in profit that I get to figure out how to spend now takes me a couple hours a month. That's a lot more passive than the 50 to 60 hours a week it took me to become demoted all the way down to president of the company. So can you starts with that freedom number. Then how will you fund it? Right? What path do you choose to fund that passive income that you need? The first thing that a lot of people can think about is they say, start and grow a side hustle. Well, that's being entrepreneur. You're starting a business. Well, can you scale it? The idea with time freedom is, can you scale it to a point where it's large enough for somebody else to run the day-to-day? Okay. I'm not an entrepreneur. I've tried a couple of different businesses. They failed for different things. One of those things outside of my control, a lot of those things in my control. So it's not something I wanted to do. I am an investor, not an entrepreneur. I was able to put money to work, not put my time to work outside of my W-2. Or if you are, in my mind, this is just my opinion, younger than when I started, because I made it to 40 without ever thinking about finances, basically never had $1,000 in the bank, started thinking about money at 40, wanted to make work optional in a decade, didn't have decades to make compound interest a thing, to have an impact on my investing. And for most of my career, I never really made more than $50,000. I think my 2018 or 17 was probably the first year I passed that with $61,000. And then the next couple of years, because the owners of the company I was at, like I said, I got demoted down to the president of the company, and they knew that I was making more money off of rentals than I was off my company, my work. I started to make more because that's how they keep you there, which is not a bad thing. In the end, I actually had $2 million golden handcuffs that I walked away from. If you have the time and the income, I think for a lot of people, the right way for you might be not investing in real estate at all. It's probably going to be stocks. Right now, if you want to retire after 59 and a half, sure, it's going to be retirement accounts and Social Security and those kind of things. But if you want to retire early, and we're talking taking age out of this, if you have the amount of money to invest, right, increasing your income, reducing your expenses to save and invest the difference, and you have decades for compound interest to do its thing, I suggest checking out guys like Joe Kuhn or Azul here on YouTube and understanding how you invest in stocks, how to diversify, how the buckets method works, and making work optional in a somewhat passive way, right? The passive way to invest in stocks means it takes a lot of your work and a lot of your income put to work in stocks. That's not very passive. Just like to invest in real estate takes a lot of your work, a lot of your time and self-education to find and understand your market, to understand your asset class, to find the deals. And then the other way is to invest in real estate the way that I did, which was very slow, very boring, and very not sexy. Words often used to describe me. Uh, I saved for 2 years to buy one duplex. And then I saved for 2 more years to buy the next duplex. So in 4 years, I did two things. This is the lazy way to invest. I figured if I could buy a property every 2 years, house hacking, reducing my housing expenses, and then in 10 years, I'd have 5 properties, 5 small multifamily, duplex, triplex, or fourplex, producing more money than it took me to live. I didn't account for the income snowball that kicked in around year 5 or 6, where the rental income had increased. I learned the binder strategy, where if you're new to my channel, enjoy this sentence. My tenants ask me to raise the rent. And I kept my expenses low. I didn't travel to really expensive places. I'd spend a month in Colombia, a month in Thailand, a couple months in Portugal. And a couple months in Florida wasn't as cheap as it could have been, but that was later. I learned how to do things I enjoy without spending a lot of money to reach financial freedom so that I knew my freedom number. I got my passive income to 4 times what I needed so that I can answer the rest of that second part of, can you? Because first we need to want to. Second, can you? Because if you reach financial freedom, what if you're investing in an asset class that's hurt by inflation? What if you don't use the buckets method and don't understand it, don't educate yourself, and aren't ready for a 4-year bear market? Right? And I'm telling you, watch Joe Kuhn. He'll explain all this to you way better than I could. And you have the confidence to say, I am ready for a stock market crash, an eviction moratorium, a government shutdown, all of these things that can happen. Do you have the reserves? Do you have the education to be ready for those things that can happen? Can you retire early also comes down to mental state, mentality. Words are hard. But what are you going to fill your time with? Could you be the next Michael Zuber who retired at 45 because he had a really bad day at work, then spent the next few months depressed, right? He had a few days of elation and he thought, wow, that's great. I don't have a boss anymore. I'm anything. And then he had a lack of purpose and didn't know what to fill his time with. So he developed, literally wrote a book, built a YouTube channel, and did one rental at a time. But he has said many times, so I'm not saying this about a friend, he said this about himself. He almost went back to work. So mentally, take this from Joe Kuhn too. Retire to something, not from something. What are you retiring to? Is your debt right? Now, I didn't say, are you debt free? I said, is your debt right? A couple of the biggest mistakes people make is one, wanting to pay off your house. The best, lowest fixed interest rate debt you can get. Or you could do like I'm doing and buy a duplex. So you're living for free while somebody else is paying for all of the expenses of living here because you have tenants. Is your debt right? Meaning you don't have worse debt, because there's three types of debt: worse debt, bad debt, good debt. Now, a lot of people understand bad debt and good debt. And a lot of people will say there is no such thing as good debt. And I'll tell you, I haven't had to work in 2 years and don't have to work for the rest of my life because of debt. So I'm going to say I'm on the side of the fence where there is good debt. Bad debt is things that cost you money: car loan, consumer debt. Good debt is debt that makes you more money than it costs and somebody else pays it off. That's my definition. I don't know if I've heard that specifically. I've probably heard somebody give like a longer explanation that says, here's all the elements of good debt. But to me, that's the main thing. It makes you more money than it costs to have it, and somebody else pays it off. So my debt was right when I could retire because I had about 1.8, maybe a little bit more million dollars in debt, which, if you don't understand net worth, sounds like a really hard way to retire. But because I had the $1.8 million in good debt, it gave me a net worth over $6 million, meaning I could, not a net worth, a gross worth, if those words work that way. The total value of my assets was above 6 million. So if I sold, paid the capital gains, paid the depreciation recapture, paid the agent fees cost of selling, I'd walk away with over $3 million after only investing $320,000 over a decade. That's why I chose real estate. In an asset class that benefits from inflation. Inflation makes people who own assets richer. Right? There's been a record inflation for the last couple of years, right? What's happening with the stock market? Record high. Oh, it's a new month. Record high. What does that mean? People who own those stocks have record net worth. Yes, it can go back down. Yes, property values can go back down. So we diversify. Can we retire? Have I protected the asset that I'm retiring in? So if you have a diversified index stock portfolio with an allocation of bonds and treasuries and all of these things that I don't understand, so I don't teach. And I recommend people go to people like Joe or Azul because they do and they understand it. I teach real estate, and I diversified in some very specific ways, right? My properties are more than 10 miles apart. I don't want a 10-unit apartment complex. I want 5 duplexes. Ended up with more than that, but spread out at least 10 miles apart, close to several economic drivers, like a base, a port, a college, a hospital, a Boeing or Amazon terminal, or a large population. I want different types of tenants, right? I have 1/3 military, 1/3 Section 8, 1/3 working and retired, so I can handle that prolonged government shutdown, stock market crash, all of the things that can happen. I can retire because I chose an asset class that I understood. I reached my freedom number. I've protected myself from inflation and black swan events that can happen by diversifying. So whichever asset class you choose, if you choose a business, make sure you protect it by having reserves, by understanding your market, by not being tied down to one market or one thing. So kind of like if you invest in stocks, that diversified stock portfolio. Imagine if in 2020 you were really smart and you sat back and you said, no, nobody can go to the gym. I bet a company like Peloton is going to triple or quadruple in value. And you dumped all your money into Peloton and you thought, wow, this pandemic is going on and nobody can go to the gym, so everybody's at home working out, and Peloton takes off. So you keep pouring all your money into there, and you're not diversified. And then the pandemic ends, and people go back to the gym, and a couple of really tragic things happen with some kids and a couple of Pelotons, and all of a sudden, Peloton sells off all of their in the United States stuff. Their stock changes value, and you didn't protect your asset. What if you purchased a 20-unit apartment complex instead of several different properties like I did, and you have adjustable rate debt, right? Because that's what commercial loans usually are. And then interest rates triple. And now they look at your NOI, your net operating income on that apartment complex, and they say, well, we're going to call the note. You either write us a check for $400,000 or $500,000, sell the property, which now might be underwater because everyone else is having the same problem with interest rates. Is your asset class safe for you to retire? Does it benefit from inflation? Do you have good debt, not good adjustable rate debt? To me, that's not good debt. That's almost worse debt, because anything with an adjustable rate or that can have a high interest rate is worse debt, even if it makes you more than it costs and somebody else pays it off. To me, the risk is not worth it if you're going to retire early. And there is a level of gradation to that. I have a small portfolio. I follow Coach Carson's idea of the small and mighty investor. I wanted the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units. There are people like the lumberjack landlord who have over 100 units, and yeah, he can go and buy an apartment complex with some adjustable rate. And if they came back and they said, hey, your net operating income doesn't look good on this property because you have some vacancies, interest rates have tripled, and you have to write us a check, and he just go, yep, here's a check, and we're done. And he continues on because it's a very small part of his portfolio. So there are people that does make sense to, but does it for you? Because that's the two things you're satisfying. Do you want to, and can you? The last thing I'll wrap up with before I get to the questions is your health care covered? Because that's the most common question I get. Well, I can't retire early because I got to have health care. Let's say you work at, I don't want to pick on any company. Let's just say a large company, Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, and you're on the corporate side and you make a good income. You part of your, or you work at Weyerhaeuser and you part of your compensation is healthcare. So to have healthcare, you contact an insurance company. They say our premium is $1,500 a month per person. Your employer says, okay, great. We'll pay $1,300 or $1,400, so 90 or 95%. And the employee, so they have some skin in the game, is going to pay 5 to 10%, or sometimes zero, cover the whole cost. So you have health care. Now you have health care. It has a deductible. You're going to have out-of-pocket expenses. Some insurance policies have a cap. You get a very serious health concern and it goes above a certain amount, they're not going to cover it. But let's say you reach that cap. You have healthcare, you're at work. And now you can't get your med card as a truck driver. Or you can't go to work because of your health concern. How long can you afford COBRA? Your employer is not going to write a $300,000 check if you go above what that coverage is for your insurance. It's just not going to happen. So everybody thinking that you have security because you have healthcare from your employer isn't thinking it through. The only aspect of healthcare you get from your employer is not healthcare. It's payment for the healthcare premium. So when we retire early, whether it's through a business where you could do like lumberjack landlord does, even though he has real estate, he started an LLC, got some employees to do it all legal, so we can get the best healthcare because of some pre-existing things that have to be covered. But if you start a business, you're going to continue with your own healthcare. If you invest in stocks, you're going to have enough stocks to have your expenses cover your healthcare premium. If you invest in real estate, you can do things like I do. I have this travel duplex, pays for my travel when I go to other countries. I have the eating out duplex. I have the healthcare duplex. I have the vehicle duplex. I have the vodka fourplex. I have the dating triplex. Whatever expense you're going to have, you need to have an asset that covers it, because all you have right now is selling your life 1 hour at a time for an employer to pay the premium. They are not going to cover your deductible. They're not going to cover expenses above and beyond what that healthcare covers. That's on you, exactly like it is when you retire or retire early. An asset for every expense while you're working. Don't be one of those people that fall into the trap, because there's a couple of traps. I should make that video too. The first trap is one more year itis. And I'll just work one more year. I'll have more money. You're trading a good year for a bad year, but you're going to have a better bad year later. And I need to work for healthcare. No, put your money to work to pay for the premium so that you don't have to work for healthcare. I'll probably cut the beginning of that video out and make its own video. Thanks for hanging out with me on a Tuesday. I don't have a scheduled guest hanging out with me tonight. My friend Mike is at SWAT training tonight, so I told him to be safe because training injuries are real. If you're in the course tonight at 6 o'clock Pacific, the Lumberjack Landlord is joining us, so you get to jump on Zoom and hang out with us for at least an hour. So I will see you there at 6. if you're here for that. If you can make it, that would be great. If not, all the course videos will be uploaded to the course, so they'll be there in future land. I hope that answers the questions on what age should you retire. The age is when you can answer those two questions. Do I want to, and can I? And then look at all of the little elements of those two questions. I see PE turned RE, Curtis, our triplex friend here, Dividend Dave. Howdy. Good to see you guys. Curtis says, my goal is financial freedom in 2032 at the age of 34. And then what will you do, Curtis? I'm curious. We should make that video. Stephen C., when should I retire? How about today? That would be a great plan. Let me know if you do. The Riley Oak, retire or retirement home. I am definitely going to be in a retirement home someday because I will have enough money to pay for paid professionals to take care of me because it's definitely not going to be family members taking care of me. I saw how that worked out with pets. Old guy REI today sounds really good. But let me know if you pull it off, Frank. I thought you were going to move up here to Washington for a while before you retire first, though. Basilio, howdy. Good to see you. Chester, Jason, Buzz Tune. How are you doing? Financial firefighter, aloha. Lumberjack landlord. Wait, you haven't retired yet? The question was the royal I. Like the nurse says, how are we feeling today? Matt, yes. And if you listen to some of the haters in the comments, they don't think I've retired because I do spend 2 hours a month self-managing my rental properties. And to them, that is not retired. It's like there is people who say, words are hard, sorry. I'm not going to put any time, energy, or effort into retiring because it won't be 100% passive. If I can't have that iron lung passive income where I don't even have to breathe for myself, I'm not going to put any effort into it. When I compare 2 hours a month to the 50 to 60 that I used to, most of my life, I worked 50 to 60 hours a week for $40,000 a year, right? A year, not a month, a year. To work 2 hours a month for a couple $100,000 that I've got to figure out how to spend. That's about as retired as I can get. Oculus, Donna Bev, howdy. Good to see you guys. All-nighter. Jared, howdy, howdy. Let's get rowdy. There you go. We need a bad dad joke. Oh, don't encourage him. How much would you typically spend on a bathroom refresh? This is a good question, Don. And it might have changed recently after having Frank come from California, came up to Washington and helped me tile a bathroom to learn this skill, which I appreciate because then I've used it and tiled as a practice on my brother's property. I don't know that I would do that again. I know that I understand the scope of it now to have a handyman do it. So I might be doing that. A bathroom refresh. What have I usually done? I've usually taken out flooring, putting in LVP. I put LVP in every room except for stairs is the only place I put carpet, but I'll put LVP. A subfloor repair if there's been any soft from water damage. I'll have that done. That's typically $500 to $800 depending on how much damage there was. Vanities are a couple $100. Put that in yourself. It's pretty easy to do those. If there's any major repair to the shower, this is a legal form of discrimination that I would do. I would like to rent to people with pets. I've very rarely ever had pet damage. I have one time a dog chewed up a piece of trim, which was less than $100 to fix, including labor. Might have broke $100 with the tip, but I'd take out bathtubs. People with kids tend to like to rent places with bathtubs. So I make sure if I'm doing, I don't just go in, buy a rental and spend money to rip out bathtubs. But if I'm doing a major thing, rip them out and usually put in a basin. And then I put in those trifold things, which is about $1,700 to have it done by a pro, at least off the thumbtack. That's been my experience. Tiling might cost a little bit more. I think around $3,000 to have the full shower tiled. And if you're going to do that, probably tile the floor to make it uniform. I don't know that I would spend the time and money on tiling and then put in LVP floor. Probably tile the floor there because tiling the floor is actually easier than tiling the walls of the shower. It's a bit of an art to it. Since I've done it twice, I'm definitely not good at it. I have photos. I should put those on here sometime. So never more than 5,000 so far. I think if you're going to break the 5,000 part, it's because you're adding a bathroom. You're turning a half bath into a 3/4. You're putting a new, because the plumbing, getting it out is going to be where your real expense is. That's what I spent. Usually around 2,000, I think, has probably been the average, the 1,700 to have the shower done. Um, he's retired now, but I had a handyman that was really good at demo. I mean, rip out everything in the bathroom was like a couple $100. It was very cheap. It's probably going to cost me more going forward. He's not retired. He's off driving trucks, not being a handyman anymore. So typical spend, if I have to do shower work, by 3 grand. If not, less than 1,000 easily, right? Depending on the subfloor work, the type of vanity you put in. Paint's pretty easy. Trying to think. Oh, almost every time, I want to say every time, but almost every time I've purchased a rental, I've put in new toilets. What was up with the 70s and 80s? And I'm like, I'm a short person. Like I'm like 5'8" on a good day. Uh, was everybody 4'11" in the 70s when they put in those tiny little toilets? But yeah, put in a decent, high efficiency, slow close lid toilet. That can be run you around 300 or so. So what I'll tend to do there is definitely price shop. One thing to know, if you shop at Lowe's or Home Depot and one of them has a sale on any product that the other carries, they'll price match. So if there's one closer to you, you don't always have to drive to the other one. Go in and show the listing. I actually just did that with the Schlag coated locks. I was replacing a couple and went in to buy, and I just did the price match. Find a manager and say, I like your store. Here's what your competitor has. They've been able to price match for me. So, Dennis, Dirty Deeds Dougherty. Dougherty, I have two major roadblocks, both probably mental. Well, what are they? Don't leave me hanging. I see Dividend Dave came in with a dad joke. Let me see how bad this is. I love partnering on deals with dolphins because they invest with purpose. It's painful. Thank you, Dave. The dad jokes are appreciated. I always tell dad jokes, and he never laughs. Jared, hour not out. Jared, we need hour. Yep. Laura, howdy. Hope you're doing well. Michelle Meyer, howdy. Good to see you here. Hopefully, I'll see you tonight in the course with Matt hanging out with us. Oculus, what are your thoughts about the amount of reserves needed for a quadplex? If you had 3 units and 10,000 in reserves, how much would you add in reserves to Swan? So you have 3 units, you're adding a fourplex that takes you up to 7. Up to 7 units, I kept 10,000 in reserves and I was comfortable with that, but I didn't have any fourplexes. It was a single family and 3 duplexes, right? So I still only have one single family, but after the 3 duplexes, then I got the fourplex. And at that point I increased to 30,000. So I think, let me process this before I give an answer that it wouldn't make sense. Had I acquired the fourplex as the next property instead of, the fourth one instead of the fifth one, would I have increased the reserves? I probably would have increased the reserves because the lender would have required it. Remember, lenders are going to want you to have, it could be more, but a minimum of 3 months of all of the mortgage payments that you have in an account that you don't touch. That's basically your reserves. So the fourplex payment would have probably been larger than the duplex payment that I was adding on that fourth property. So I would probably at least make sure you were more than 3 months of all of your mortgage payments. That would probably take it to 20. It might have taken it to 30 like I did. And then I stayed at 30 all the way up till 16 units. And then I increased it to 50 when I retired. So are you working? If you're working and you have confidence in your ability to be able to find a job, if yours goes away, right? I had a CDL. There's jobs everywhere. So I could have found a job doing anything that required a CDL. So lower reserves was fine. But if you're making $250,000 a year in an IT position and you get laid off, it's a little harder to replace that than it is to replace a truck driving job. I might have higher reserves depending on how easy you think it might be for you to find a job in your field. Oculus, there you go. Hi, all night. Hi there, Laura. I'm headed to your state in the morning. Nice. Don't go swimming. Alligators everywhere. Jared, recently my property manager called wanting to discuss my obscenely high heating bill over the last few months. Come on by. I told him my door is always open. There's the other dad joke of the day. Good. Now you're competing with Dave. That is why I have, as much as possible, all utilities in the tenant's name. And yes, if you're doing something like Jared does, which is that rent by the room method, probably not an option, especially when you rent $200 per week. The wealth building journey. Financial firefighter, thanks again for connecting me with real estate DE today. Is that a typo? Maybe there's a better name. I now have a new broker and spoke with another new lender today. Nice. Good time to lender shop. I talked with my nephew the other day who's thinking about refinancing because his mortgage company called and said, we will do a refinance. This is how much it costs. This is what you return. And I said, well, you should talk to at least 2 or 3 other lenders. I think he said that sounded like too much work. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him listen. Your network is your net worth. That is totally true. Michelle, I know you covered this before, but question, once you have satisfied those issues, how do you talk yourself into doing it? If you have to talk yourself into doing it, I don't think you've satisfied the first one. The first issue is, do you want to? Do you say you want to, or can you actually lose sleep at night because you're thinking of next week not having to get up to go to work, especially when your boss made you go back to the office like yours did this year? Do you want to? I could have for 4 years. And I knew I wanted to in the back of my mind. I knew that retiring would be interesting. I didn't know I wanted to until the last like 2 months before I retired. Actually, I think one of my first, I don't want to say viral, but my first video that performed really well, got like 20,000 views, was I recorded a video 2 weeks before I retired. And then after retiring, I was on a cruise in the Mediterranean and I had very bad service. So I recorded a clip. I said, hey, here's a video I recorded just before I retired. And I uploaded that again. It's like put that together because I didn't have service to do a live or anything. And in that video, I broke down the math. So Michelle, this is what I would do. Take a whiteboard, because this is what flipped the switch for me. And I didn't realize this until like a year after retiring. I thought I retired because I had a great day at work and I thought leaving at the top of my game would be great. And that is a part of it. And I've actually done videos on that too, but I did a whiteboard and I did the math. This mental games I like to play. How much do I make off my rentals? And in the video that I was replaying on the whiteboard, I said, here's what an average family makes. It was 70 something dollars, 70,000 something dollars a year. You break that down, this is how much they make per hour working full time. And then I broke mine down and it was like, oh, I make, if 24 hours a day, it was like $19 an hour. And if I do 40 hours a week, I'm making whatever it was, $80 an hour, or something like that. And I sat back and after recording the video, I sat down in the office at 7 o'clock at night on a Sunday. I was thinking, okay, I worked all day Sunday. It's 7. I finally had time to do this live stream, right? That was the live stream that I then replayed a year later. And I'm making more money without having to get out of bed than the average family, which means 2 incomes, has to work 40 to 50 hours a week to get. How much do you make, Michelle, per hour, per day, without having to go to work? Because you recently just did a new 1031, and yes, you got to stabilize your new units. And I'd wait a few months, and then I'd probably bind your strategy, see where you get your rents to, and then do that mental exercise. And when you sit back and you think, okay, I hesitate to retire, Michelle, because you have a decent job. You enjoy it, right? You don't like going to the office, and I'm not timing you out here. You've said it before. You really liked the work at home part, but going to the office and the commute that you have is a little bit of a frustration. Have you ever sat down and thought, okay, if I don't go to work ever again, and this is what I'm making, what would life look like? For me, most of my life, I lived on less than $20 an hour, right? And yes, that was back in the dinosaur days of 2000, 2010s and that kind of stuff. And so I get, yeah, that would need to be like $40 an hour to be a decent livable income now. But I was making over 80. And that was $80,000 a year ago, less than what I'm making now. You are investing in an asset class that will continue to increase in value, right? And if it drops in value, rents will increase. You're investing in Spanaway. We talked about this in the last one. What happens if that airport goes in Graham? You become a multimillionaire. And if it doesn't, and rents just continue to slowly go up, right? Because they haven't ever gone down. They can flatline for a while, but they haven't ever gone down in those Class C rentals that you invest to, very much like the ones I do. Do that mental exercise on a whiteboard or piece of paper and let me know what you think afterwards. But be careful. It is what flipped the switch for me. Dennis, first major roadblock. Thank you for not leaving me hanging. Analysis paralysis. I have yet to narrow down my buy box because I'm looking so many different areas, analyzing multiple areas, and choosing best or just focus on one for now. When you say choosing so many areas, how smart are you? How much information can you retain? And how likely are you when you start having, after the Googleplex, you start having fractals where you can start making mistakes? How much is your bandwidth? I have the bandwidth for one market, like one area, right? If I was going to came close to stop investing in Washington and starting investing in Gary, Indiana, based off of my friend Millennial Mike's, I'd piggyback on his network, right? At that point, I would have stopped looking in Washington and I would have focused on the asset class in the market that I was going to be putting my money to work at. Instead of thinking, how many markets should I look at? It's how long should I look at one market? Right. And this is from Michael Zuber's One Rental at a Time. You 60 to 90 days to study a market. He had analysis paralysis for that first 6 months to a year staring at the spreadsheet. There is no information in the spreadsheet that's going to tell you to buy a deal or not. The spreadsheet is going to tell you if the math works, and math is one of the steps. If you've been studying a market for 60 to 90 days and you want to move on to another one, sure. But then you stop looking in the first one. You looked in the first one to learn the skill to look in the other ones. And I realize my tone sounded a little rough there, and that's not what I intend. I wouldn't want to waste more than 60 to 90 days of my time looking at a market and then another market at the same time. An example is old guy REI. He is in a few different markets and he has learned the skill to go to the new market, find the property manager, get the things in place. Frank, are you now narrowing it down to a market you want to focus on? Right? We have Justin Kimbra. Justin has he went into several different markets and he grew a big portfolio. And what is he doing now? He's downsizing to focus on the ones that make the most sense. So even the people who do focus on multiple markets, they narrow it down over time. You can do that before you buy. So have you spent 60 to 90 days studying a market? And then before you go to another market, is it your asset type that's wrong, right? I spent 60 plus days, I'd say 6 months, studying single family in my area and realized that they don't cash flow, and they didn't at the time when I started, right? So I've been investing now for over a decade, and I have still never once, not once, seen a single family home that would make sense as a rental. I have one that I bought before I was an investor, kept through a divorce, have paid off, which was a mistake and cost me $1 million. And I keep it. Oh, I wouldn't buy it again. It wouldn't make sense as a rental to buy. It makes sense buying it in 2000. It makes sense keeping it because it's paid off, having a dialed in tenant, renting it to a Section 8 tenant. All these things make sense to keep it, not to acquire it. So I shifted to small multifamily. Then I stayed in that asset class in that market for a decade before I expanded my market. Because here's the thing that changed the most recently that I would say, don't look at a whole new market, but expand your market out a little bit. Remote work has changed the landscape, right? But remote workers will rent 30 to 45 minutes further out than they were before because, yes, they get called back to the office. They can deal with that if they have to, but they have to go to the office often, once or twice a week instead of 5 days a week. A longer commute is better to have a more affordable place, further out, bigger, whatever they're looking for, away from the city. Not everybody's a city person. So rents have pushed up further out because there's more demand. but prices haven't pushed up further out because those remote workers don't want to buy. Because what if they do get called back to the office? They'll cancel their lease, they'll break their lease, they'll live out their lease and then move back to the city because that's where their job is. So they don't want to buy because not everybody wants to be a landlord. So that's the first thing I would do is expand your market out a little bit. But have you studied your asset class to make sure it's the right one in the market? Because here's something I take away from working in law enforcement, right? And I only did this for 8 years. So it's not like I'm a retired cop that has all these ingrained things, but just 8 years of working in law enforcement with the training and experience, I know that I can speak with confidence that a cop can't show up at a crime scene and think, I think this happened. So you're thinking, I think small multifamily in this market makes the most sense, and then force it, right? The cop can't then look for evidence to back up his theory or her theory. The cop goes in and tries to blank the mind as much as possible, right? We all have our biases, but we're going to blank our mind and go, okay, based on the evidence, here's what I think happened. And the officer has to be able to change their opinion of what happened when they meet new evidence. So if you think small multifamily in your market's the way to go, but you're in Ohio, there's some markets there where I know single family houses outperform small multifamily. Or there's more opportunity for them, or some reason why some people who invest there specifically target single family houses. Versus in my market, that's what works. So it's how long in a market before you shift from one to the other. I would not diversify and look at more than, I mean, maybe you have the ability to look at 2 markets. I don't. So I would focus on one for a period of time before shifting strategy or market. And I'm hoping your second one's coming up here too. Michelle, as I navigate a BS of corporate egos, I want to just run out. Well, there you go. You're getting closer to I want to. Can you? Anna Kay, howdy. Good to see you here. Robert, howdy. What age, as soon as possible for me anyways, 20 is when you're young, 30s is when you're aging but still in shape, 40 you start losing your ability to gain muscle and your shape. I know some people who didn't start working out until they were in their 50s and are in really good shape. I have a friend named Paul, didn't start running until he was like 55. He's 60 something now. He's in better shape than he was at 30 or 40. So most of us struggle as we get older, but it doesn't have to be that way. Jay Goofy, first time I ever caught this live on time. Awesome. Good to see you here. I hope maybe you have a question. Jason says, tap the like button. Every time you hit a like button, somebody retires before Mike. Jared, you could do a strange move like I did, if possible, leave for a year, build up a small portfolio, and then go back to work. Everyone's path is different. There is no one right way, but there is a one right way for you. If I remember right, Zuber's goal when he started buying rentals wasn't to retire. It was, he thought, if I have 4 rentals, my retirement will be better. So Jared, you're right. Not everybody's path is the same, and not everybody's path is exactly ending up where they started. Anna Kay, time is running out. When I think of retirement, I get my heart running faster. I wish I were ready. Let's get you there. I look forward to it. Rich, Ryan, howdy, Robert. At 50, most people except for a select few, are at the best shape, unless your name is Sean Baker. 60, you are probably completely crippled at that point, depending on your job too. My family works in trees, and at about 60, we all fall apart. I joined the Marine Corps because that was easier than trees. And my entire life, I've been called lazy because of that. Process that. I'm so lazy, I joined the Marine Corps. That's the actual thought process of my entire family. Robert, and yes, I have high standards because health standards for Americans are low. My no-go years at 55-ish because going to me is hiking the Appalachian Trail. Nice. Jared, finding I've invested $317,000 in less than 8 months. Hopefully this means I can get closer to retirement in a shorter time than 10 years. I think I say that often, but I never want to talk that up because I don't want to give people the perception that faster is the goal. So will it probably happen faster? Jared, did you start at $89,000 in bad debt you didn't know about until the divorce? Or are you a single parent with 3 kids? Did you get laid off from law enforcement and you're only making $17 an hour at a CDL school? Like that starting position I mean, I almost have the trifecta. Had I had a major health concern, then I would have had all the bases covered. But I didn't. I had a bad debt to income ratio, a low income. Uh, yeah, 10 years to me. And it's somebody, I think it was Mark, financial firefighter, asked this on the in the school meeting for Zuber the other day. Something like, when did you think financial freedom was possible? And for me, it was before I got the first duplex. As soon as I did the math, so this is what I'm hoping clicks with everybody, with anybody, somebody, maybe two somebodies. It's possible, right? If you're starting today, it feels hard, right? It's always felt hard to buy. And everybody goes, well, this time is different. There's never been a time where some dingus didn't look at me and go, well, this time is different every time. Okay, so this time is different. It's every time. Don't say that. I should probably Google what dingus is before I realize I might have called somebody that. I have no idea what that means. Familial term of love in my sphere. So if you start now, today, right? And there's somebody here, PE turns RE, you're in the graduating class of this year at this age. If you start today, 10 years, you're the graduating class of 2034. What can happen by 2034, right? You save for 2 years before, if you just follow my same timeline, 2 years before you buy one property. Yeah, if you're starting right now and you're thinking, how do I even save? I have a bad credit score. This seems impossible. Of course, it seems impossible, because there's somebody like Jared who can go, I had this much money. I took a year off work. I acquired a portfolio. So I go back to work so I can get more money to put back to work. Very different situation than most people. A lot of people, it is, how do I start saving anything? How do I fix my credit? Let me talk to a lender to find out what my options are. Now let me pick a strategy. Is it business? Is it stocks? Is it real estate? If it's one of those, what strategy in that subset is it? Like, all of that happens in the next couple of years. And then in 2 years, if you follow my timeline, you buy one property. Start saving for 2 more years. Now at the 4-year mark, can you add house hacking somewhere in there like I did? You don't have to. The less you make, the more likely it's going to help you. If you make more, it's not a requirement. At some point, the rents will go up. At some point, the dividends are bigger. At some point, your stock appreciates. Whatever happens, there is more money to reinvest, more money to invest, and it speeds up. Have the 10-year goal. And if it happens, Jared, in 5 years or 6 years, awesome. If you make a 2-year goal, you're going to fall on your face. Something's going to go wrong, because lots of things are going to go wrong in the 10-year plan. But in 10 years, you have time to react to them. So I look forward to seeing where you go. Calvin, howdy. I can't watch this in full length till later because I'm still at work. I'm still at work because I'm not retired yet. Boss is giving me the eye. Would love to stay. Gotta go. Well, hello in Futureland. I hope this information helps you. Ouch. And my chat moved. I want to make sure I get through this. Why did my chat move? Jared, I'm in such a hurry, but forcing myself to stop for now to see how things go. That stabilization year, very important. Thank you, Calvin, for that comment. Native to Earth, howdy. Good to see you here. Why should I use Hemlane over door loop? So when just starting out, I don't know that you need either, right? I used Cozy for a long time, and then I used apartments.com and Zillow for several years. Didn't need either. The reason I'm going to Hemlane isn't because I have a rental property. I have 4, going to be 5 properties on Hemlane. That is 5. That's 5 properties on Hemlane now, out of 18. Right, so it's not like I went, I'm going to go Hemlane, put them all on there. I'm not going to existing tenants and saying, hello, ma'am. I understand you don't have the internet and you write me 6 checks at once so I can deposit them every month so you don't have to go online. But here's this new portal you need to learn how to use, right? I'm not going to take an existing tenant and force that. But newly acquired property, tenant turnover, anything like that, going on Hemlane. Here's what Door Loop doesn't do that I know of, right? Hemlane has 3 tiers. The most cost-effective tier is the one I'm using. Lets me collect rents, dispatch handymen. Tenants can lodge issues or whatever through that. The stepped up tier is if I don't have my own handyman, I can use Hemlane's version of Thumbtack and have their handyman go do things. But the most important tier to me is tier 3 because I'm going to travel and be out of the country, right? Last year, a couple of months in Portugal. Year before that, a couple of months in Florida, which to me is like being in another country because I'm in Washington. It's about as far as you can get and still be in the same country. Before that was Thailand. Before that was Colombia. After this summer, I'll be in Thailand again this winter. If I have something like a tenant turnover, for the month I have it, I can step Hemlane up to tier 3, have a leasing agent go do a lease signing, show the property. Once that's done, step back down to the more cost-effective lowest tier that I need. That's why I love Hemlane. But with just 2 units, do you need it? Right? Apartments.com and Zillow is free. I've tried both and see which one gives you the most impact in your area. You can list for free, put the description in, put the photos in, you get applications, you'll get your credit reports. Because when I use Hemlane and somebody applies for a property, they found it on Zillow and apartments.com because that's what I don't know that Doorloop does is Hemlane puts it out on 30 platforms. I put the information in once, goes out on 30 platforms. So I don't have to worry about in my town, Roomster is used the most, or Apartments is used, or Zillow, whichever one is used the most, right? Do the research by posting on a couple for free. Don't have the Hemlane expense until you have a few and maybe you want to start being a little more hands-off and you want to have that flexibility of going up and down in tiers because they let you do that. Change each month, specifically how you want to do it for what you need for that month. That's why I'm a Hemlane fan. Now, as you get larger and you have 50, 60, 100 units and you need what Matt calls a backdoor info, which I don't. I don't want my information on, I don't use Hemlane to track any data. I wouldn't use a door loop either. I have a spreadsheet with all of the information that I need that I email to myself. There's nowhere in the world I can be where I don't have access to that. Not going to be hacked. Yeah. Bill, howdy. Jared, he said fourplex for vodka and duplex for healthcare. I love the prioritization of the property allocation. Well, it depends on what your expenses are. Water that makes your eyes water. All-nighter hider. Just remember that health insurance is not health. Very true. Basilia, when you're going back to Thailand? Great question. My plan was to spend last winter there, but thank you to the lovely city in the town where I bought my duplex that took months and months and months to approve permits instead of the 3 that it would have taken to do the work. I spent the winter here doing my first and last burr. Where this 10 months, I agreed with anybody who came and said, you're not retired, you're a real estate investor. This was not retired. A burr is not retired. Flipping would not be retired. Wholesaling is not retired. Owning the rentals, having to answer a text, dispatch a handyman and send a Venmo payment, that's retired. Thailand this winter. I purchased a duplex on the water, walk down to the ferries, take the ferries over to Seattle. I want to spend the summer here. I'm not going to travel during the summer, not much. I might take a couple of small trips. But the winter in Washington, and this is bad grammar, is no bueno. So I will be gone for the winter in Thailand, and it'll be a lot of scuba diving. I'll spend most of my time at Koh Tao. I'm probably going to be there 5 to 6 months. I'll take a month and go experience some of the Philippines. Haven't been there yet. So I'll be reaching out to some of the people that have been there to, hey, where can Americans go that's still safe? Thailand, I know the places to go and the places to avoid, right? I liked the scuba dive, so I'll be on the Koh Tao, the island the most. Koh Tao, I'm probably saying it all wrong. Sorry for apologizing. I am apologizing for saying it wrong. But if somebody comes to visit, like Justin Camber said, hey, I might come, or Millennial Mike might get a chance to come and visit when he retires. He's going to come and visit, right? I'm going to go to some place like Chiang Mai, right, where you have the swimming with the elephants and the playing with the tigers and the zip lining and all of the awesome temples and all of that kind of stuff because they're not into scuba diving. So I'll travel all over. If you have a single friend that goes to Thailand, they go to Pattaya. It's not my kind of place to go. Janitor on fire. Howdy, good to see you here. Josh, Rob. Dion hasn't retired from WoW raids. Nope, it's actually gaming today with my son. So not retired from WoW. Although I do play some Fallout 4, but only in VR. I've never played flat screen Fallout, flat screen Skyrim. Those are for me only good in VR. Julie Anderson, howdy. No alarm equals retired. I love it. That's a good way to put it. No alarm, no boss, no deadlines. I mean, let's look at it this way. Let's say you're a landlord, you have 18 rentals, and you have a tenant move out. And people would say, well, you have a deadline. You need to get that rented. Well, what if you don't? What if you take 3 or 4 months and just kind of goof off and go, oh, yeah, I should probably get that rented out. Did it, all it impacted was how much money you're saving every month. It didn't impact your ability to eat, your anything. So yeah, even that doesn't have a deadline. Are you probably going to rent it out quicker and give yourself self-imposed deadlines? Yes. Cabragun, Cabulus. What was your one biggest obstacle, vice, or hobby you had to cut back to accomplish your first rental? Love it. It's a great question. Hopefully, I got your name anywhere close. I have a video coming out Thursday on weird things I had to do to retire early. And so this will probably be one of them. I haven't, because I don't script my videos. I haven't incorporated this into the thought process of what's going to be in that video. What was your one biggest obstacle or vice or hobby? I had a vice that was gaming. I made money with it. I played World of Warcraft and sold things online as a side hustle. But when I really started focusing and getting good at rentals, I stopped gaming from 2015 to 2022 when I retired and focused on real estate instead of having the side hustle. It was more productive to buy the rental, to increase the rental, to do those kind of things. Vice, biggest obstacle. I am a good employee. I am. I think it's being raised by an entrepreneurial family where I was the youngest, the slave labor, joined the Marine Corps where you learn if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. So early to every job, mission oriented. So I'm a good employee. I had to get over that. At the CDL school, I had a couple of ideas that were really good, grew the company, made the company a lot of money. So I got demoted down to president of the company. I was good at being an employee. I could have done that job until I retired. I could have stayed there. If you're happy in your job, you can just stay there. But what if some legislation changed? What if my relationship with the owners changed? What if they sold the company? Right? That job can go away. No matter how much you like your job, it can go away. You have no control. I think getting over the mindset of being an employee, because I'm a good one, and saying, I want to take charge of my finances. I want to diversify my income sources. People, you've heard the statistic, millionaires have 7 sources of income. I have a few others, but they're minuscule compared to the hundreds of thousands from real estate. But real estate, while it's a source of income, it's diversified, right? I'm in 3 counties. Properties are more than 10 miles apart next to several economic drivers. I have Section 8. I have military. I have working or retired. I've got multiple sources of income in my one asset class. Yes, I make a little money on YouTube. I can share if you want to see how much money on there. Let me know if you want to see how much YouTube pays. There's channels all about that. I do expert witness testimony on different court cases, and I make a couple $1,000s a year there. There were years where I pursued that, and I would make 10 to 20,000 as a side hustle, but it's work. I don't want to do that. It's fun to look through and say what happened in this situation, what codes, WACs, RCWs were triggered in this situation, who's right, and what's the truth, right? That's a fun thing, but it's still work. To buy the first rental, to think, okay, if I can buy these rentals and buy enough and make work optional, then I don't have to be an employee, even though I'm a good one. You might be, Dan, a great doctor or work in healthcare, physician, oncologist, whatever field you might be great at it. That might be a hard thing to get your mind around. That sometime, once financial freedom happens, you don't have to be that thing you're good at. Because just because we're good at something doesn't mean it's our calling. It means something that we did to survive. That's a great question. Thank you. Jared, you're so bad it hurts, Dave, for the dad joke. Thank you. TW, We get to decide what our retirement looks like and be intentional for how we get there. Great content and keep up the good work. Thank you. That is the whole point of financial freedom. Like I have three major problems, some other smaller problems with the FIRE community: financial independence, retire early. The first one is they don't like real estate. It's usually stocks. And I don't have a problem with stocks, right? So I don't down talk stocks. They down talk real estate. Um, I'm not frugal. I don't want to be frugal. I was frugal to become financially free, but I didn't want to do it to be frugal. I'm still have habits that are hard to break. But we retire to be able to do anything, not so that we can do nothing. A lot of people say, "Oh, I would like to retire so I can do nothing. Sit on a beach and do nothing." Yeah, I retired to do anything, and sometimes anything is nothing. But that's sometimes, and it's a very small amount of time. There's never enough time to do all the nothing we would like. Whose quote's that from? Oh, I got some good dad jokes going on there with your puns. Why not LVP on stairs? Cost or sound? I live in Washington. Everything here is often wet, right? Shoes are wet. Floors get moisture on them. And LVP is a little more slippery on stairs. If somebody falls on the floor, okay. If somebody falls coming downstairs or going upstairs, not so okay. That's my mentality. Haven't anybody fall down the carpet? I don't think I have anywhere with LVP on stairs. I could be overthinking it, but it's really cheap too. So all-nighter hider, how much would you charge to LVP or Frank? 28 stairs. Because the remnant of carpet to do it was $80. And the labor to carpet the stairs, tack strips, angle each piece, put it in, was $150. So I'm less than $300 to have that completely done with carpet. So it's a little more cost effective, and to me, safer. That's why I chose to do that. Good question, Don and Bev. Thank you. Legacy slip. Yep, exactly. That was a Calvin and Hobbes quote. Wealth building journey. Yes, it was. Good job. Reduce falls. Yep, exactly. Cabragun. Uh, Patriot, howdy. I'm a 52-year-old police officer, lost my job in 2020 to COVID. Now back in law enforcement in a bigger city, did not sell my last home and made it into an investment property. Awesome choice. Yeah, I got laid off in 2008 because of a financial crisis, basically, and as an officer patriot, you understand that when there's bad economic times, there's no more crime. So we don't need cops anymore. And I wasn't sure if I was going to go back into law enforcement or not. Right. So I went to teach at a CDL school. And is it overshare time? The reason I didn't go back into law enforcement, when I got called from a chief from another department that I had not worked with, but knew, still didn't go back. I started teaching at the CDL school and I was there probably 4 or 5 months. The 2008 crash was still happening, so the departments hadn't really recovered yet. So this was before me thinking, am I going to go back to law enforcement or not? But my daughter came to me. She was a teenager at the time. And she gave me a big, huge hug. And she said, I'm so glad you're not a cop anymore. You always come home in such a good mood. I didn't realize I was one of those guys that, yeah, I never came home and yelled or was a neck, but they could tell I wasn't in a great mood because of what you deal with at work. Not the best to hang it up at the door. So in that moment, I decided that even when the recovery happened, I wasn't going back to law enforcement and stayed at the CDL school. Ended up working out. But I'm glad you're back on the job, and good job keeping the rental, because I tried to rent my place out and messed up so bad. And because I wasn't doing this, I wasn't on YouTube educating myself. I wasn't listening to audiobooks, podcasts, or anything. I was just going to do it on my own, right? And replace my income. And I did all the things wrong in that first year. Who can trust a stranger? So I rent to a friend. If you rent to a friend, who needs a lease? So it's just a handshake. And he was a single parent like me. So when the rent was late, I was like, I understand that. When times are tough. Late became never. Right? I tried to give it away. I was like, nope, I can't do this. Because I didn't educate myself. That was the problem. It wasn't that being a landlord was the problem. It was that I wasn't educated. Luckily, I was underwater on the house and kept it because I couldn't get rid of it. I still have it now. It's that house that's paid off, rented to a Section 8 tenant. Paying it off was a mistake. That's cost me $1 million. Um, I'm going to keep it though. Julie, I would like to see that trifold shower door. Okay. I need to do that. So, yeah, I'll put together a video on what we've done. I would love to retire by 60 if I could. Not sure how much longer I can chase the bad guys. So how long in law enforcement? Are you at a new department? How does that impact your left to or your pension or whatever you've got going on there? Um, and so you are 52, 8 years, you have one rental. By 60, I could easily see that happening. Yeah. I think one every 2 years. Because Patriot, here's the math, right? This is the thing that's really hard to explain and why this goes into these long videos and not into those 10-minute ones I'm trying to make for the people who would never click on a 2-hour video. So if you're here, good job. If you have a rental now and you're 52, and then in 2 years you buy one, in 2 years you buy one, in 2 years you buy one. So you buy one at 54, 56, 58, 60. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll have 5, right? You don't have 5 rentals. Some of them might be duplexes or triplexes, so you have more numbers. But what you have is you have a rental that you've had for 10 years now. How many times has rent gone up in those 10 years? How many opportunities did you have to refinance to a lower rate or recast the loan or shop insurance rates to get a better insurance cost to lower your expenses but increase your income? The one that you buy in 2 years, you've now had for 6 years from 54 to 60. The one you buy at 56, you've had for 4 years. You've had rent increases. That's the math of time that's missing from, in 8 years, you could probably acquire those 4 other properties so that you'd have 5, right? You'd then have 8-year seasoning, 6-year seasoning, 4-year seasoning, and then that's why 60 looks so retirable. Keep me updated. Let me know. My email is in all of the descriptions of my videos. Sorry, words are hard. But keep me updated on how it goes. Dividend Dave, too bad wealth. When it comes to me, my favorite film involving water is A River Puns Through It. Of course, it does. Laura, so cool. What city and how long? Okay, you're going down to Florida there, all nighter hider, Dawn and Bev. Personally, hate carpet. Any other alternatives? Well, yeah, I mean, LVP works just fine. I'm sure people, millions of places have that. That's what I would do if I couldn't do carpet. Donna Bev, thanks for the answer. Thank you for the question. I just appreciate it. It's what we're here. This content only exists because of the questions, right? YouTube doesn't exist because content creators want to make videos. Content exists because people ask the same question. This channel literally started because I was in the real estate rookie and BiggerPockets Facebook groups answering questions, and I'd get the same question over and over. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if I just had a 10-minute video and then somebody asked, well, should I have an LLC with my property? I could just send them a video instead of cussing them out. But that's not what happens. Then I find out that when you are in big groups like that, you can't post your own content. So the biggest compliment ever to any YouTube content creator is when somebody asks a question and one of you puts a link to one of our videos. If somebody says, man, I'd really like to raise the rent, but I don't want to lose a good tenant, and one of you puts a binder comment, post that link in there, I'm like, oh, that person is my hero. Because I can't do that. The content creator can't self-promote, right? But somebody else can say, hey, this answers your question. That'd be great. Awesome name. Awesome. Who is awesome? Who's on first? I was thinking of building an ADU to help me pay for my mortgage. It would cost me around 130,000 and rent would be around 2,000 a month. What are your thoughts? 3 thoughts, brought up knee-jerk reaction, right? Because that's the point of these live streams, is you get the information that is kept in top of mind awareness. This is not something where somebody asks a question and I go, okay, I have to go research that. Let me make a video. I'll script it. I'll make sure I've got all my data points right. This is what does an investor keep in top of mind awareness so that when we're looking at listings or talking to other investors and we have to make a 30-second decision on hundreds of thousands of dollar commitment over decades, right? And this is what I would actually have in my mind for this question. 3 things. First, check out Derek. His YouTube channel is called That ADU Guy. A, like Adam, dog, union, ADU guy. He's literally going to have all kinds of information about ADUs that I wouldn't, because I've never built one. He will have some awesome information. Like most of us think, well, if I can build an ADU and I can go up to 1,200 square feet, maybe I can get a 3 bedroom because a 3 bedroom is going to rent for more in my area. Well, the cost basis analysis of building a 1 bedroom or a studio might get you a better yield, a return, than the 3 bedroom will. Sorry, Matt texted me. I want to make sure yeah. So there's a screenshot of Matt, the lumberjack landlord, talking about how to do the binder strategy. That's exactly what it is. That's how you complement a fellow content creator. Thanks for that, Matt. That is exactly what I was talking about. So the first thing is talk to Derek, that ADU guy, right? He puts his phone number in his videos. Maybe don't talk to him, watch a bunch of videos first, then have questions and approach him with that. Second thing, reach out to contractors in your area that have done ADU builds, right? You say it will cost me probably this much. Cost is a factor, but how is this municipality or county to work with, right? Some might have 3 months worth of work take you 10 months because they fight you on everything. And you have to do creative things like you need a permit to put siding on. Siding permits can take a couple of years to approve. If it's under 1,000 square feet, you don't need a permit. So you look at your duplex and you figure the downstairs is less than 1,000 square feet. So you do the siding. And then a couple months later, you do the upstairs siding. And now you've never actually done more than 1,000 square feet in siding, and you have to fight the city on improving your own property. So I'm one of the, that's not why, it's one of the top 10 reasons why I'm not doing a BRRRR or a rehab again. But maybe you live in a place where it's not so bad and they have a pretty good estimate of what the timeline would be. Maybe they have plans. That's the third thing, is your city might have plans on file that can save you money. These are our approved plans. It saves you $7,000 from having plans drawn up. And if they're approved and using the cities, they're more likely to want to work with you because it's their system. That's my thoughts. Building is not always a bad thing. It's not something I want to do. It's not as passive as I want to be. I'm the lazy investor. It could, and probably often is, your best financial decision. Like Matt, the lumberjack landlord, would call it his buck, best use of capital. But those are the things that I would do. Lumberjack landlord, thanks for the super chat. That's how you get your comments to the top of the list here. Share the link at Dion so he sees it happened. Do it just a couple of times a week, and this community will grow like wildfire. Thank you for that. I much appreciate it. Because there are some questions I do like to answer, right? Because that one is the LLC thing is the one I get on my soapbox on. But I don't want to raise the rent because I might lose a good tenant, is actually this statement. I'm not going to raise the rent because I'm okay losing a good asset. So then we send out the binder strategy and people go, wow, there's a way to ethically raise the rent where I have happy tenants and I make more money than I probably would have if I raised the rent myself. There might be other questions that come up too that I have a video that covers, like how much in reserves or something that's like the math of time. If somebody says, why should I retire? Here's the math of time video. It's probably my favorite answer. TW, if you are active military, retired military, or a senior, Home Depot offers discounts. They do. And if you are none of those things, you can get the Home Depot or the Lowe's card, which does a few things for you. One, you want to open up a pro account if you have rentals, because anytime you're going to spend more than, this is the magic number, write this down or take note, $1,500. If you're going to spend more than 15, so if you have two projects coming up, maybe buy everything all at once. Because if it's over $1,500, what you do is you go to the pro counter. They don't just go, hey, here's a 10% off for military, which, yes, I take advantage of that every time I'm not spending $1,500. Or, so there's another benefit to this too. When you go to the pro counter, they take all of your stuff. So recently it was cabinets, flooring, not flooring, I don't buy that there. It's cabinets, water heater, tile, all the stuff that goes with tile, some tools, more than $1,500, 26% off. 26%, because what they do at the pro counter is they take what you're done, what you're buying. They send it to corporate, which could be their manager, could be corporate. I don't know how it actually works behind the scenes. And corporate looks at your purchase history. And then the lowest I think I've seen is 22% was the lowest discount I've ever gotten. I've gotten 30% before. And so go to the pro counter, then use the Lowe's or Home Depot credit card. Verify for this if you know it's the same at Home Depot, because I use the Lowe's because it's closest to my house. When you have a delivery, like the other day, I needed a drywall for this completely legal, permitted closet because of this stupid city. So it's not permitted. This closet here, drywall. Delivering it to my truck's probably going to get messed up, right? So go there and buy it. If you're using your credit card for Lowe's or Home Depot, I know for Lowe's for sure, $20 delivery fee, no matter what you're having delivered. $20 to have it delivered to my door for the sheets of drywall that I needed was way better than me putting it in my truck and driving it home and hoping it makes it. Because it comes on their truck, and one of them is messed up, and they give you another one for free, and they leave the messed up one. And so you have extra. Arts and crafts with drywall. But thank you, TW. That's a really good point. Dennis. Second roadblock is financials. I have 50,000 available, but I feel like that whole amount would be used up with one deal. Should I be focusing on more DSCR, be it BRRRR, seller financing, etc.? So there are channels like Multifamily Strategy or Cody Davis here on YouTube who are, and Millennial Mike, who are doing faster, more creative things. And I recommend them when someone asks, right? If somebody says, how do I invest at a distance? I'll put a Millennial Mike video. If somebody says, how do I do a rehab and save money? I'll put in a lumberjack landlord thing. If somebody has a question about stocks, I'll put in, here's Joe Kuhn's YouTube channel. Go watch it, right? Somebody I have actually never interacted with or talked to or been on Zoom with or anything. Just, I know he does stock stuff. And it's one of the weird things on how I was able to retire. That comes out Thursday. And in that video, well, I will actually explain why I mention Joe Kuhn so often. So you're looking for my advice, Dennis. So if you want advice where you want confirmation bias, you want somebody to give you advice that lines up with the way your question is worded, you're going to go talk to Mike, you're going to talk to Cody, you're going to talk to Christian, you're going to say, hey, all this creative stuff, how can I do it faster? I don't have a lot of money to start. That's not me. And so I hope I don't lose a subscriber. I'm going to be transparent and honest with you. Mine is the slow and boring way. It's going to take a decade. So if you're just now starting and you have $50,000 saved, that means, in my opinion, this is how I would do it. 50,000 is enough to do a house hack in almost any market. You go to just outside. So in Seattle, yeah, a house might cost $1.6 million, but you get outside of Seattle where it's only $1 million, only $1 million house with a 3% down conventional loan. Don't go FHA, go conventional. It's 3% down. You need 30 grand down. Now you need reserves, closing costs, immediate repairs. 50, you're on the cusp. Are you in $1 million home market? Can you find a duplex for 600,000? It's 5% down. Can you triplex, fourplex? They're 5% down right now because of conventional lending. Right now has the option of 5% down, owner occupied. Are you willing to house hack? That's where the 50,000 comes in. If you are not, maybe it's a turnkey property in something like Gary, Indiana, or the worst place than Gary now that those prices have started to go above 50,000. But the house hack reduces or eliminates your housing expense and adds to how you can save. So now you start saving for 2 more years. In 2 years, you acquire the next one. Maybe it has to be a house hack if you don't make a lot of money. Maybe it's an investment property. Then 2 more years. Now the rents from those properties start to stack up. Rents have increased. Maybe you've refinanced to a better rate. Maybe you're making more money at work. All of the income snowball starts to kick in and you start to buy one a year, one every year and a half, pay one off, which was a mistake. So that in the 8 to 10 year mark, you have financial freedom. Slow, boring, and not sexy. The words used to describe me and my portfolio. I wouldn't look at DSCR unless the property required it, and you already met the limit of conventional loans you can have in your name. Then maybe I'd consider it. I am not doing a BRRRR again. And I didn't do one until after I invested for 10 years. There's too many slips between the cups and the lip where ARV, estimating it, AR timeline. Right? How do you estimate the timeline for the rehab? How do you estimate the cost for the rehab? How do you estimate what needs to be done in the rehab? All of those are things you can mess up. And then if you're like Millennial Mike, who starts 2 BRRRRs because he'd been investing for 3 or 4 years, had some rentals, had his feet under him, and he was good, interest rates almost triple. What happens if that happens to you? I wouldn't recommend starting the BRRRR. Seller financing, I think, is always an option people should pursue and have it as an included in your offer. So I have documented kind of all of the things that the seller financing letter might want to include. And you can get it for free if you go to diontalk.com. I have a free course on the binder, right? So I made a free course, cost me about 10 grand to put. If you've ever put together a course, you know how much it costs. So you know how much it costs to put together a course. The binder course is free. It teaches you how to get your tenants to ask you to raise the rent, makes it a lot easier to invest in real estate if you know that's going to happen. But I also include my seller financing letter and a copy of my spreadsheet of how I track all my income and expenses in there for free. So if you go to diontalk.com, you can get that. It's all in there. I would make seller financing offers with everything. I'd be pursuing it. But even though I do that, all my loans are conventional. All my properties are from the MLS. So it's an option. Dads are appreciated now. Dad jokes. All-nighter hider. Going to Orlando the 3rd, maybe up to Alaska for a summer on the 5th. That is about, again, as far as you can get apart. Rob, there must be an AI filter for dad jokes. Gotta find that. There you go. Leo, what's your thought on VTSAX, an ETF? I think it is an asset class that can perform very well. So if somebody asked me, what's your opinion on crypto? I'd be like, I don't own any. I don't want to own any. I don't ever want to own any. But I will be honest and say it was the best performing asset of 2023. Right? I'm not going to say something that's not true. It was the best performing asset of 2023. When I talk about financial freedom, I talk about my path with transparency. Here's the mistakes I made. Here's the wins I had. Here's the struggles I had. And here's how it worked out, right? And I put it all out there. I never say, you should do what I did exactly how I did it. There's no other way. Every other way is wrong. I almost in every video, and I think it irritates the people who come to actually watch for real estate. So sorry if this bothers you, but I try to do this to be transparent. Start and grow a business, invest in stocks or real estate, right? And then crypto, it's an evolving thing. I don't think it has a track record for me to recommend yet, but there are people that do reach financial freedom with that. So I don't have enough information to say that is something I would invest in or not. What are my thoughts on it? If I wasn't going to invest in real estate and I wasn't going to start and grow a business and I was going to invest in stocks or ETFs, exchange traded funds, I would do my research 60 to 90 days, understand the asset class, understand the asset category, make sure that make sure that I knew I was putting my money to work in the safest, diversified format for that asset type. Is it a fund where there's enough different things to where a company can fail, but other ones pick up the slack? I would do all of that research before putting my money to work into it. I would find people who have invested in that, have successfully done what I'm wanting to do, watch their content, ask them questions. So possible viable route? Yes, do the research. Now, I've studied a lot of things in real estate. It'd be nice to own a 100-unit apartment complex that cash flows $20,000 a month. It'd be great, right? But what's the debt? Like, it sounds great. It's an asset class. The VTSAX is an asset class that you can invest in. Are you going to use what do they call it? Leverage with stocks? Oh, my brain shuts off right at the most important times. It's awesome because I always say don't do this, but it's not normal leverage. It's great. Love it when my brain shuts off. Somebody will with a brain will put it in the chat. Are you investing with diversification? Are you comfortable with the risk tolerance? Do you have a long enough timeline? Because this is stocks and ETFs are decades of investing. Are you a day trader? 90% of day traders lose money, right? So whatever the statistic is, could be 70, could be 9. 87% of all statistics are made up on the spot, including that one. Margin. Thank you, Oculus. Yes. Margin. So I'm not saying no. I'm saying I chose an asset class that worked for me. So if you do it, study it, make sure it's the right choice. Dennis, is that the first super chat? It looks like it's bouncing like it is. Thank you for the super chat. That is much appreciated. Let's celebrate their first first super on a live stream. Thank you. Thanks for giving us your time. I really gravitate towards the slow and lazy approach. I appreciate that. And I know that there are faster ways. Most people, I think, who listen to me and do what I'm saying are going to do it faster. They're not going to have the barriers. And I found Michael Zuber's One Rental at a Time in 2018 after 4 or 5 years of investing. And I was reading it and then I listened to it. And that's why I narrated it for Audible because the narration was terrible. But I was looked at like most of the stuff in the thing was like, wow, this is everything I've done. Here's a playbook of how I did this. You have that here. You have YouTube University. This was something I was missing in those first few years. But thank you, Dennis. That is much appreciated. RG, do you invest long distance? Welcome to the channel. Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. I'm sorry that it takes me so long to get to comments, but because I'm trying to work my way through, right? And I want to make sure I give the right amount of time to each question and comment. I hope my information helps you. So that's not sarcasm saying welcome to the channel. It's actually thank you for hanging out with us on a Tuesday. I do these every Tuesday. I invest locally in Washington State within about an hour and a half. My furthest property with traffic now is about an hour and a half away from me. I tried to stay within an hour for a long time and then recently expanded out to my new market, purchased my current house hack. If you invest at a distance, I suggest checking out Millennial Mike. He's got a YouTube channel. Trying not to sneeze. He's got a YouTube channel. He works in law enforcement, so he's not making multiple six figures a year. He's not super rich. He lives in the area of Seattle, which is a high cost of living area. So he house hacks a duplex. So I think he's doing the right thing there. The more high cost of living area you live in, the more impactful house hacking can be. But then he invests at a distance. And if you're going to invest at a distance, like I'm one of the teaching assistants for the BiggerPockets boot camps, right? And I can't give away their stuff that's in the boot camp. So if you're here from the boot camp, great, you know most of what I'm going to say and more than I'm going to say. But they have a list of things you're going to use to choose a market. And this is off of some of their videos too, so I'm not giving away secret stuff. But economic drivers, how many sources of tenants are there? Is the population growing or shrinking? You can go to uhaul.com and see where all their trucks are going to see if populations are moving to or from an area. Like you can use all these things, right? But what Millennial Mike needed, and what I would need it to invest at a distance, that's more important than all of the metrics talked about, is trusted boots on the ground, right? So if I was going to invest at a distance, I would probably invest in Rosamond, Lancaster, or Palmdale, California, because I used to live there. I know most of, and this was a million years ago, but I can go back and quickly see where the good and bad areas are. I wasn't going to do that because I don't want to invest in California. I was going to go to Millennial Mike, who has trusted boots on the ground, and use his systems, his property manager, his contractor, his agents, all of those things that it takes time to set in place. So if you're going to invest at a distance, trusted boots on the ground is going to determine which market you pick more than any other metric. I would invest in a worse market where I had trusted boots on the ground. He's investing in Gary, Indiana. Do you think that's the best market out there? I don't think it ever was or is going to be. But he's doing it successfully because he had a friend, Mark, from Matsky Finance, who was investing successfully there. And he piggybacked using his system. So that's what I would do. And I don't invest at a distance currently. Jared, Dion, I don't believe you have done a recast of your mortgage. Do you know if any of the vendors have recast any of their loans? I think Matt might have. I was thinking of recasting in 2020 and then interest rates dropped, so I just refinanced everything. I don't know if they have recast any of them. I have suggested it as something to consider. Wealth with Rentals, howdy, good to see you here. DIY Landlord, howdy, Texas. My greeting should sound familiar. Wealth Building Journey, 1000% agree. Make certain that the market isn't crashing following before moving to another market. Auditors work the same as detectives. Let the evidence lead to the conclusion. Yes. Playing the corporate game is highly stressful. It's not intended for a 20+ year career. So true. Thanks, Goofy. Jay DePena. Hey, I have a 3-unit home in Boston with 415,000 in equity. Single family home with 334,000 in equity. I have a HELOC on both worth 200,000. How do I get my balls together to use that HELOC to continue to invest? Okay. I'm going to probably be wrapping up after the next couple of questions because I need to get ready for the course. So remember, if you're in the course, the Lumberjack Landlord is hanging out with us tonight at 6. So have your questions ready for Matt at 6 tonight. Jay, I grew my portfolio by recycling cash flow, not capital. So personally, I'm not a fan of tapping equity. Right now, a lot of people call it tapping equity. I want to redefine that as you have the ability to add debt to an existing asset. Okay, so I'm not in your school of thought of what you want to do. Doesn't mean it's a bad idea. My brother used the HELOC on his house, which was paid off, to acquire a rental, pay off the HELOC, acquire a rental, pay off the HELOC. He just got to 10 paid off rentals. Then he retired. He's been retired now for like 8 or 9 years. And he's having a great life, does whatever he wants with 10 paid off rentals. Totally fine. It's a viable strategy, works great. Not my thing. So if you're going to add debt to an existing asset, that's what the equity is. It's not your money to use. It's you can add debt onto that money. You can sell to take that money, then it's yours. So the first thing I'd look at is if I was going to use a HELOC, can you pay off the total amount of the HELOC before the rate adjusts? And some people say, well, I've got fixed rate debt for 10 years. Okay, Skippy. Well, you have it paid off within 10 years. Easily, even if you lost your job, even if interest rates went up, even if a lot of other black swan things happen, could you pay it off? Because in 10 years or 5 years or 7 years, interest rates can be 18%. Do you want to be in that position to worry about that? Not me. So if I could pay the HELOC off, like my brother was running a tree service and he had pretty consistent and good income, he'd take out the HELOC. He knew he could pay it off within a year or two. So he did it over and over and over. That's the first thing. Second thing is if you can't, then I wouldn't want to do a HELOC. I would want to go with, and right now there is an option, which is a massive danger to a lot of homeowners, not investors, but homeowners, the second position mortgage being backed by Fannie and Freddie. So you can leave your, because right now a lot of people have, you have that, you don't want to do a cash out refinance, right? You have mortgages that are probably at 3 or 4% or even less if you refinanced in 2020 or bought in 2020 or 2021 before rates went up. So you have really good interest you don't want to mess with. That second mortgage now is an option to take out the equity. Now it's fixed rate debt. It's probably a little higher interest rate than the HELOC, a little more cost intensive to put in place than the HELOC was, but now you don't have to worry about paying it off in time. So that's how do you tap the money? Why do you tap the money is more important. Are you confident in your ability to find a deal? Not, I think I can, but you know there's a deal that if you took the money out, and let's say you have 450,000 here, you have 334 here, you have 200,000 in HELOC. So you have the HELOC for 200, you take the 200, can you put it down on a property? Is your debt to income ratio able to handle that? Because if you don't touch the HELOC at all, they consider 1%. So right now, lenders will look at you like you have a $2,000 a month payment in your debt to income ratio because you have a $200,000 HELOC. Now, if your debt to income ratio can handle it, because if you have rentals, if you have rental income for 2 years, yes, you buy a rental, they're going to look at that 75% of that rent coming from the new thing in your debt to income ratio, so you can do it. But can you find the deal? In your market, the asset class that you understand, would the $200,000 down payment be able to have you buy a property where you got a return that is so good, it generates a return on the asset that you're buying. So it covered all the expenses, the pie tie, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and expenses, right? Take that from the lumberjack landlord, the pie tie. Is it going to cover all of that? You're setting aside money for future repairs, maintenance, and vacancy on that property and cover the debt service on your HELOC. If you're confident that you can do that, then that's what the HELOC is for. So first, it's how you tap it. Then it's why. And if you aren't confident that you know you could tap that equity, no touchy. Emperor's New Groove, go right to it. No touchy. I recycled capital. It's slower. It's boring. It's not sexy. Feels like it takes forever. It was a couple of years between rentals in the beginning. But if you've got this much equity, what are your rents? You've got units. Are they increasing? Have you used the binder strategy to get the rents where they need to be? What are you doing to reduce your expenses to increase your net so that you can add to your savings more to be able to invest? And yes, slower, slow is steady, steady. You know, what is the shooting thing? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. It's just boring and not sexy. You can do it faster. There are more creative ways, and they are viable. What is your risk tolerance? How much do you have in reserves? But it really comes down to the two things that tell you when to buy, right? The first thing is, are you ready? You have the HELOC, do you have the down payment, closing cost money for immediate repairs? Is there nothing major going on in your life that takes away your focus to be able to buy a deal? And did you find the deal? Good question. Don and Bev, we're still at that stage. Our retirement will be better because we have 4 properties, only 3 rentals, no house hack yet. Hopefully we'll get to earlier some year sooner. Nice. You're killing it. You're doing awesome. None of that sounds bad to me. Then my chat moved. And I was on Dawn and Bev. Native to Earth. Have you heard of the channel Retire Mentality? He had a similar story, house hacking in Florida, then retired with a few Airbnbs in Puerto Rico. No, I haven't. I will have to check out. I've probably watched some of his stuff because I watch a lot of retirement channels. Retire Mentality. I'll have to check it out. And Laura, Dion, you said it was a mistake paying off your primary. Wasn't a primary, it was a rental. You also mentioned no to paying the property off for protection. Why did you pay off your current duplex? I have an umbrella too. Yes, I didn't pay off my current duplex. I bought it all cash because it's a BRRRR, but it was self-funded. So I don't have a timeline on refinancing. I don't even have a requirement to refinance. I might. It depends. Do I want to grow more? Not sure I will. What are interest rates going to do? Do I have confidence that I'll find a deal with the money that I take out? I bought it all cash because it was the best deal. And so when we're in growth mode, we buy usually we want the best yield. And then we go through our other checklists of all things at once, right? It's going to help limit tenant turnover. It's diversified. It's not close to my other properties. There's several economic drivers, all of those things, right? The physical aspects of the property. But when we're past growth phase, remember, don't compare year 10 to year 1. When I retired, I was living closer to Tacoma, and I would hear sirens 3 or 4 times a day, shootings, muggings, stabbings, whatever, every day, carjackings, vehicle prowls, whatever, more vehicle prowls than carjackings. Oh, I said carjacking. I don't think I'd ever heard of one there. There must have been one though, but not a happy place. I purchased in a town called Port Orchard on the water. Been here 10 months now. In 10 months, I've heard the sirens. I was saying 3, but I think I heard them again the other day. So 4 times now in 10 months. Don't know that there's been any violent crimes. I got a report of a DV incident like three streets up, but wasn't gun shootings or anything. I moved here to retire here. This was a stabilization move, not a growth or optimization move. That's why I say don't compare year 10 to year 1. It's a fair question, and I totally appreciate the question. I bought it all cash because here's the problem that happens with the income snowball. We reach financial freedom, the money continues to come in. I still live on around 4,000 a month. Sometimes I splurge and go more, and I've got those reverse budgets. I have to spend 2,000 a month eating out. I've got a paid off vehicle. I live in a place where I'm paid to live there, right? I was paid to live in the fourplex. Now I was paid to live here. So I don't have housing expenses. The money piles up. Got to do something with it. So yeah, the money is still piling up. I'll probably buy a rental in a year or 2. I might do a refinance here and buy one sooner because there's 2 things that tell you when to buy. Are you ready right now? No, I don't want to buy. When we do the members only meetups and we all jump on Zoom, I don't want to look at, I will, because that's what they're for. I don't want to look at the deals from my agents because I'm afraid I'll find one. I'm like, oh, that's a great deal. Better pounce on it. I don't want to do that. I want to look at your deals and then go through the market and look at, these are all the things an investor would look at. So I'm not ready because I don't want to. It's kind of like retiring. Do you want to? I don't want to buy the next one yet, but the money will build up and eventually I'll start looking in. I'll buy the next property. Or because we retire to do anything, not nothing, anything might be one day I just sit back and I go, huh, I think I want to buy another rental. I go and I do a cash out refinance. I take the money and I go buy the next deal. Life is better when we have options. And so buying this all cash gave me options. At the exact same time that I bought this all cash, I had an offer in on a property that was accepted that I had passed on to old guy REI. It made sense for me to self-manage my area. It got me about a 10% return. It didn't get a good enough return because Frank and Cynthia were going to use property management. Then it wasn't such a great deal. That's how I look at it. I self-manage and I'm investing for the long term. By year 3 or 4, it would have been a 25, 30% return like all the other properties in this area are, maybe even more now. That one would have been with a mortgage. So it was next best thing. Because at the time, Laura, when I was saying, I made several videos in a row saying, here's my goal now. Here's what I'm doing now. I have this money, and I was very transparent, right? It got up to, at the end, it was about $500,000 sitting in the bank. When I started, it was about 215. It was building up over a year because all the rental income and I was still working, but the money grew. I was saying, I want to buy a fourplex. I want it to be at least $1 million. I want to put $250,000 down or more as it grew. But as our down payment, closing costs, immediate repairs, and money for reserves grows, our options change. So I started doing that. And in 2021, I found a duplex that was a great deal. So I bought it, pushed off the fourplex further because I didn't find one. And then in 2023, I found this place and I bought it. It's a great deal. Pushed off the fourplex again. At some point, as the money builds up, or if I do the refinance, I might go grab that fourplex that costs at least $1 million. Last question here from Cabragoon. Would you consider a multi with 4 apartments paying great rents equal to 4 separate properties? Not equal. When we're first starting out, I think the 4 separate properties might be easier to acquire because you would do them one at a time with each down payment. And for many years, the fourplex would have taken an FHA loan, so it would have had to have been owner occupied to do the 3.5% down. In other words, you'd need 20 or 25, most times 20. Right now, it's 5% down for a fourplex. So 5% down for a fourplex versus you could do 3% down conventional for one single family if it's your first, but 5% down for each after that. So that equals out the same. If you're just starting out, if the 4 houses were on one street and the fourplex was on one street, I'd probably go for the fourplex. We're allowed to have 10 conventional loans in your name, right? A fourplex would take up one of those slots. 4 houses would take up 4. If you're just starting out and saving the down payment is a barrier, right? Acquiring the house adds a cash flowing asset sooner than saving to get the fourplex. It starts a depreciation schedule against the income. And if they're more than 10 miles apart, you are diversifying your tenant sources. And when you're first starting out, I think a bed bug infestation at a fourplex is going to be a lot more damaging than one of your 4 houses having that issue. So I don't know that I would want 4 single family houses. I don't know that I'd want fourplex. I would go back to right out of 1 rental at a time. If I was looking at 4 single family houses and the fourplex and I had the money to buy all of them, half the fourplex or the 4 single family, best use of capital, calculate the yield, which one has the best yield. When we're first starting out, there's a lot of chronology to that. When we have the down payments, will any of it be a house hack? All of that. Would a cash flowing rental give you speed to acquire the next, second, third, and fourth house versus how long it took you to get the down payment for the fourplex? Right. So I'd look at all of those before I'd make a decision. And Dennis, Semper Fi, Semper Gumby. I was in, according to urban legend, in the unit where that came from. Never heard anybody said it. Just see it on Wiki now. So I hope this got everybody thinking. If you don't want your question answered publicly, feel free to email me. And sometimes I'll make a separate video and I'll leave your name out if you want me to, of a question that you want an actual answer to. I've done that where I've made videos to just answer a question. I am going to get ready for the course, which is ready in 11 minutes. So if you're in the course, see there, remember for the entire month of May, the course is less than, it's like $447 or something like that right now. For the month of June, we are not doing course calls. We will be doing members only calls like normal every month. But July, we will be doing course calls once a week. So we will see who will be there. I think this time the goal, if I can bribe them all into it with guilt, would be to have Matt, Millennial Mike, Zuber, do a week each, and then do a culmination week where all four of us are there. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe we'll just do that and have different guests. So thank you all very much for participating, hanging out with me on a Tuesday. And remember, you can't drink all day unless you start early. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.